Hey everyone. Welcome to Hope Digital while Joel mutes his computer.
It would not be the start of a podcast recording if one of us didn't have an unmuted computer.
That sounds about right. Welcome to everybody who's live on Discord with us right now. It is Hope Digital. We're 1 week behind right now, this podcast, but
We are
excited to be here.
now. Okay, so did we get the music off? Because I heard it restart just before I muted mine. People in the chat, tell us if the music is still playing, because we actually don't get to hear it on our end.
Okay. I think we're
Not
good.
playing.
Yay!
Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so we've had since our last podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, hold on. Before we get that, welcome to Hope Digital, everyone. This is the Absolutely Everyone podcast. We are building an emotionally healthy corner of the internet for absolutely everyone, and that means you and you and you.
And everybody else who's going to join us in the future.
Absolutely. So we'll talk more about that probably closer to the end of the podcast when we start talking about kind of our next series.
Absolutely.
But we've got a lot to catch up on, guys, because it's been an insane 5 weeks since our last podcast.
It has. I don't even know where to start. We've all been around. Even online, everybody's had vacations.
Yep.
We've been to Gen Con and back.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a whole nother story. Probably not for tonight.
Probably not.
And then Bloomington is where we're focused. For those of you who are joining us later online, some of us, not everybody here, but those of us recording this podcast are in Bloomington, Illinois. We've had some weather events.
Yeah. Actually, so right now, none of the people that are online right now are based in Bloomington.
That's awesome. That's what we want.
That is, yeah.
I mean, it makes me not want to talk about anything that's happening around
Well,
here.
it's important because it's why we didn't hit our normal cadence last week.
Why we weren't online? Okay.
I mean, we were, so Thursday of last week, we get a thunderstorm here locally, and when that thunderstorm hit Bloomington, it dropped 20,000 feet within like 20 minutes.
Yep. And all of that 20,000 feet of thunderstorm smashed down into the earth on top of Bloomington, and then went whoof in all directions. And I have not seen destruction from wind like this inside city limits ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
We've lived here pretty much all our lives, and it was intense. Actually, when we drove around the day or two afterwards, because I mean, power was off. What the hell else were you gonna do, right?
That's what Joel did.
I drove around, and
They kind of told everyone not to do that and to get out of the way.
yeah, but I was in a truck. It was fine. But the streets were lined. The curbs were just lined with so many down branches. And tree limbs and full trees that it felt like there were bushes and shrubs lining all of the streets.
Yep. And all of those got there because people had to cut them down, and they were on people's homes
Yep.
and on people's yards and on electrical wires. At one point in time, over half the city was out of electricity, and for days you were out.
Yeah,
Other
I was
people were
out
out.
for so
That's it.
when it first happened, we weren't out of electricity right away, and I texted Trish and I'm like, okay, worst comes to worst, we could always go to my house and do the podcast. And then almost immediately after that, we lost electricity too. So it was like, okay, maybe not. But right after all of that, so within 36 hours after that, we got 6 inches of rain literally overnight. We made national news flooding some of the subdivisions and a country club, trapping people in their little subdivision.
It's kind of funny, but yes.
It was a little bit funny. So something you guys should know about where we're located at. We're up kind of high up compared to a lot of the surrounding counties. So even if it were to flood around here, and it did, it also drains quickly. So we were all right. It was fine.
We're not used to flooding for that very reason, but here we are, and we're back, and it's a week later, and everyone came together, and we're doing good. So
We're doing good. And we're here tonight talking about all sorts of fun stuff.
yes, we are. But shall we do our prayer statement first?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
So, for those of you guys who watch this later, we are we have this prayer statement that we use to center ourselves, center the community, remind us of who we are and who we're trying to be. We use this in Hope Physical, we use this in Hope Digital, and we really want to make sure that everyone feels this in their soul as we continue to grow together.
Yes. So join us if you are familiar.
Yeah.
Dear God, as Hope Church, we pray that this is a place where absolutely everyone experiences God's love. We are a place of theological thought and conversation, and we are a community learning to live Christ-centered lives. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So what are we talking about tonight, Joel?
We are talking about our spiritual practices.
Yes, which there were 8, right?
There were 8, and we're closing out the last 2 of them tonight.
All right. The last 2.
And that is leadership and Sabbath.
Sabbath. Shall we start there?
Let's start with Sabbath. So chat, we're going to be asking some of these questions. If you guys have all been with us, I think, just looking at the names, we're going to put some of these up on the screen. We're going to be asking you to give your thoughts, give your experiences with some of these questions. And the first one is, what is Sabbath?
Yeah. That's a question we definitely asked ourselves, and I think we all have kind of a different perception of what Sabbath is. Like, we know what we were told in church.
Mm-hmm.
I was told it more, though, from a perception of the Jewish Sabbath, and that's something that Jewish people celebrated, and probably was explained to me more historically. It was not part of my Christian tradition until I hit adulthood, where it started being talked about a lot more. And even then, I don't know how well it was talked about. And it was always just about take a break, don't do things. That was pretty much the extent. Like, could you stop? Could you maybe pray? Could you focus on God for a day? Hey, this is a great idea to do this, but we know no one actually ever does this. That's really what I think I walked away most of my adult life hearing.
I'm trying to think back to growing up with Sabbath. We were definitely taught about how it was originally a Jewish tradition. There was a big focus on the origin being in Genesis, and we actually have that coming a little bit later of kind of the biblical origins of the Sabbath there. But outside of that, wasn't really talked about. The idea of even taking a break and taking a rest was wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Every break you take is a day that you can't be being productive and earning your way into heaven.
Well,
that wasn't explicitly taught that way.
It
for the
was
record,
not
but
taught that way. And I watched some people kind of force themselves into taking a Sabbath, but then it became very legalistic and very much like, I am more spiritual than you because I'm not doing anything right now.
Yeah, and I think we also saw too people who ended up having to take what we would call a Sabbath out of pure necessity of being burned out.
Sure.
They would just run out of steam, and there was no real other option.
Are you trying to say that rest is actually a good thing for the human body?
I am saying that real rest is good for the human body.
And maybe the mind and maybe the spiritual being as well, not just, sleep.
Yep. Okay, so guys, we're not going to put things up on the screen, the chat stuff up on the screen this time. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are going to read some of the stuff that we've got here. Sim says, I had a grandfather once who believed it was wrong to even mow the lawn on the Sabbath Sunday for him.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about being legalistic. I definitely heard those things.
Yeah. And Annie says, Sabbath is ultimately about participating in God's vision for a just world. It's a communal prioritizing the well-being of the most vulnerable, not just personal downtime. Worship as rest, resting from labor to trust in God's provision rather than in one's own work. And let's see, Nick says, I definitely learned a lot about it from the historical context, but never really encouraged. And then Sim says, in my view, the Sabbath need not be limited to a set day of the week. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't think it
agree.
has. I honestly, though we were taught it was the seventh day or whatever, one day of the week. I just don't think that's the spirit of it either. I'm with you, Sim. I think
Yeah.
I think the spirit of it is, for me, that it is a good thing to take time to be restored.
Yep. And to Annie, to your point there, I do think that one of the ideas that we've explored in a lot of these different dimensions of spiritual practices is the idea that there are communal components and there are personal components to almost every single one. So certainly, personal rest is important. Personal Sabbath is important, but also coming together as a community for Sabbath is important in some way.
It is. I would encourage you, though, if you're somebody who always supports the community and you're the resource for the community, and pastors fall into this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sundays are never Sabbath for them because it's a work day, right?
Yep.
They're facilitating everything else. So they've got to find that time somewhere else. Maybe it's restorative for someone else to come to church and sit and learn and everything. But if you're the person facilitating all of it, if you're the Mary in the situation, if we're being scriptural, Martha, yes. Mary may have been Sabbath. Martha was, that wasn't her Sabbath.
No, it wasn't. And she got kind of mad about that.
She did.
Okay, so let's talk about rest. So you're going to hear us start steering our conversations in these podcasts in the future towards emotional health and just health in general. So let's talk a minute about what rest looks like for you. And I'd say in the spirit of keeping with that communal and personal part, like having a piece of both, what does rest look like for you individually? And then what does rest look like for a community?
Yeah.
I would say that we have a lot of really exhausted communities right now.
I think we do. I think you and Joel, we both got off work today at different times, and I know we were both feeling it. I remember I logged off work like a good girl at 4:15 today and said, there's no way I am in the right headspace to come and do this podcast. I need to decompress. I need to rest for a moment. And I turned on YouTube for a second and I questioned it. I actually turned on Netflix first. And I was like, if I watch this show, I don't think I'm going to be resting. Like, I know it, but I know what that's going to do to my emotions right now. I know what it's going to rile up in me. That's really not restorative rest. And I questioned myself, and I actually turned off Netflix and turned on something in YouTube that doesn't emotionally affect me the same way. Not saying that was the right thing to do, but it did. It gave me a moment.
I actually did almost the exact same thing. I turned on YouTube and just started with some random story YouTube video, and I'm like, you know what? No, this isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't going to get me rest, and this isn't going to reset my mind.
It would distract you, though, right?
It would.
Uh-huh.
It would. And so that actually leads us into our next question. I didn't see any responses on a whole lot of what is rest, but we got an interesting thing here: escape versus rest.
Yes.
A lot of the things that I've seen that our culture purports as rest or puts forward as restful is really just an escape or a numbing.
I think so. Yeah. And I'll the first one to admit, I do that all the time. I'll turn on something on TV to numb, to escape, to distract me from whatever else is going on. And I don't say that's wrong. It's not a bad thing all the time to do.
In moderation.
In moderation. It's not Sabbath, though. To me, I have to remind myself that's not necessarily rest.
Yeah, so I think
for me,
I think of it kind of this way. So Annie said literally a meal could be a Sabbath, according to my dad, and I don't disagree. But it's the difference between
who you're eating that meal with.
Who are you eating that meal with? Yes, but also like, is that meal leaving you healthier and more whole at the end of it? Right.
The French fries I ate on the way here in the car were probably not counting.
Right. The extra muffin top, or in some cases more extreme versions of that.
Mhm.
I am notorious for eating my feelings.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is not Sabbath.
No. No.
that is not even rest. That's a distraction, and that's numbing, right?
Mhm.
Whereas, like the meal that we had at your house last Friday, in the aftermath of all of this, that was Sabbath together.
Yeah.
That was rest together.
We had a bunch of people come over who didn't have electricity yet, and we did at my house, thankfully. So we just wanted
Ooh.
to give air conditioning to people and a good meal.
So audio sounds like a spaceman. Interesting.
It's multiple people.
Multiple people are saying audio sounds like a spaceman. There might be something going on with our internet, guys. So if we sound like a spaceman,
We apologize.
we
And we'll
apologize.
see what we can do here.
Well, the good news is though is that it isn't sounding like a spaceman to our sound guy over there, which means it's most likely recording just fine.
Yeah.
But let us know if it is still. Is it still doing it? Comes and goes. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. We'll. Okay. Cool. All right. So for everyone who might be listening to this later, one of the perils of a live recording is that we might occasionally sound like spacemen.
Apparently. There's worse things to sound like.
There are. Yeah.
So escape, numbing, rest. So how do we properly rest? What does that look like? Does anybody have any? Guess we talked about a meal. Any other tips for that? I think it depends on the situation for me.
So Oliver says, I feel like literal escape, going outside into nature, is more restful for me than any form of attempting to rest at home. And I mean, there is something to the old internet saying, touch grass.
Oh, 100. It's not a saying. It's real.
It is. It really is real.
I had a rough day at work this week, and at the end of the day, there'd been a lot. And I just said, it was before 4:15 on this day. And I said to my coworkers, I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm logging off, and I'm going to go stand in the sun.
Yep.
I was like, and she's like, I love it for you. Bye. Because I had to get away.
That was actually one of the hardest parts for me living in Texas. Was up here, it is so green almost all the time.
In the summer.
In the summer, yeah. I mean, not in the winter, obviously. Yeah. But in Texas, you get about 5 days each year that it feels comfortable to go outside.
Yeah.
So Annie actually adds on to that, saying grass is not enough at the moment. I need native plants and wildlife.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. And grass in that case wasn't literally grass. Just it means go outside, be in nature, and kind of be one with nature, you know.
Get your feet dirty.
Yep. Mr. Lincoln, our friend Mr. Lincoln, says mowing grass is restful to me because when I'm done, I have a sense of relief, take a shower, and then a nap. Okay, real talk. Sleep is a critical part of rest, and sometimes a good nap timed in the middle of the day, not for everybody, but for some of us.
For some people, that's great, as long as you're not using
amazing.
as an escape. Because I know I can do that sometimes. I try not to. I just have a hard time getting back up. But yes, sleep is important, and very few of us get 8 hours of sleep a night or whatever your body needs. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 10.
Yeah.
But understanding what you need and what brings you, to me, it's balance. Sabbath is about restoring balance with people, with God, with yourself. And I think that, to me, I have to look at what does that mean for me at any moment. Today, turning on YouTube for a few minutes helped balance one part of me so that I could then focus somewhere else. But Netflix wouldn't have done that for me.
Yeah. And, when I think back of some of my most restful Sabbaths, for me, it happens on a beach. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, now I live so far away from a beach.
You do love beaches.
I do love beaches. Beaches and me are good friends.
Yeah. I'm the opposite of that, but that's okay.
So, okay, so if those are kind of examples of healthy Sabbath, and we've talked about escape as one form of unhealthy Sabbath, there are other forms of unhealthy Sabbath, right?
Sure.
So you talked about how in some religious traditions, there's the idea of a forced Sabbath, where if you don't take whatever the definition of Sabbath is, then you are judged, and that is bad, right? It
Right.
hurts. It hurts the community. The community looks down on you, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a healthy form of Sabbath?
Of course not. I mean, I would say it's not because it doesn't bring balance to you and the community around you. To me, it's selfish. And I think Jesus gave us the exact opposite examples of that in scripture, where he broke the Jewish Sabbath as understood of the day by
Yeah.
healing people and by caring for the sick and by ministering to people. And to me, like that's where that the legalism just it doesn't hold up even scripturally. It
Yeah.
just doesn't.
Yeah, and I think we definitely have to be careful whenever we talk about Jesus and the Jewish Sabbath, because that has been used so often throughout, even throughout some of the things that I heard as a child, to be like, oh well, observing the Sabbath as a religious practice, that is the old way. That is the kind of the subtext being the not right way.
Right.
Right.
And that's not true either, right?
That's not true. And we understand that we understand now, or at least I do, that those sorts of expressions of spirituality and faith can be so beautiful and meaningful to the people who observe them, right? But certainly forcing people into any particular spiritual practice, whether that's Sabbath or giving or leadership, any kind of forced or coerced spiritual practice is harmful and not healthy.
Of course.
Right? And okay, Nick says something great. If you're using Sabbath to avoid things, it's just escape. It's not Sabbath.
There you go. Love it.
There you go, Nick. All right. Okay, so let's talk about kind of the origin of the notion of Sabbath. The first time we see that in Scripture.
Pretty early on.
Pretty early on. It's actually in the second book of Genesis. Mm-hmm. And it is, on the sixth day, God finished the work he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation.
Yes. So God modeled for us
Yep.
a behavior, whether you take this literally or poetically. It was a model of how you work hard, you take a break.
Yep.
And that there was a blessing associated with it, which I think is important to remember.
And he, when he says he hallowed it, how I understand that is that just means that it was special to him. It was something to revere, something to prize, right? We can prize our rest and our Sabbaths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and appreciate it. And if there's a blessing attached to it, it's not inactive. And in a culture that says do, mm-hmm. I think it's important to not see Sabbath life activities as things that are passive. There's an actual result that comes from that.
You actively Sabbath?
Actively Sabbath. I'm actively Sabbathing. I'm going to use that next time I properly need a break.
You know what? Please do. And I want you to, in the group text that we're in, I want you to be like, I'm actively Sabbathing right now. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. I'll figure that out. Absolutely. We'll come back and let you know. And as we go through this week, I would love to see in Discord us talk a little bit more about this. Like, if you come across times in your life where you are finding ways to insert Sabbath activity, whatever that means for you, jump in there and share it so that we can learn from each other, because it's a practice I need to be more conscious about.
I think all of us do, because we do live in a culture that really pushes distraction
Hmm.
and numbing and titles it rest and
Yes.
relaxation.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
know, so finding things and practices and ways to rest as individuals and
Hmm.
as community to kind of refill our cup is really important.
Yeah. Okay, so that is one of the spiritual practices we're going to talk about today. And there's another one
Yes.
that maybe at first doesn't seem like they go together, but I have a feeling we're going to tie together them before we're done here. I was surprised how well they went together.
Yeah, and so Jenny and a small team at Hope created these probably a year or two ago
Yeah,
now,
it's all
something
right.
like that. And when she told me, when she first introduced this to me and told me that these were kind of paired practices intentionally,
Hmm.
I looked at some of them and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I got to this and I'm like, oh, this is really uncomfortable.
Just felt like it. Oh, they're the two that were left, and therefore they went together.
A little bit, and then the more I got into it,
Hmm.
the more like, oh,
Maybe
okay,
not.
this kind of makes sense. So the topic is leadership.
Hmm.
So the spiritual practice is leadership. And this one is I am going to want to hear some stories from you guys here throughout these, because all of us have stories of good leaders, bad leaders,
Yes.
etc., right?
So give us some examples of leadership.
So what is leadership first and
There you go.
foremost?
What is leadership? Ah, I'm.
This is such a hard one, because we're kind of deconstructing not just how we were raised religiously, but also the whole culture around power dynamics
Hmm.
and hierarchy and control based communities,
Yeah.
you know, and trying to separate out leadership from authority
Right.
is really challenging,
Right.
right?
So let's talk about what we've been told first, because
Yes,
that's easier to share versus what we actually maybe believe now or we're working through.
absolutely.
So we've been told that power is leadership.
Telling people what to do and people following that.
Yes.
We've been told that's leadership, right?
We sure have. We've been told that political hierarchies are leadership.
And to be fair, we've been told that there are good ways to coerce people into doing what we want them to do, and we've been told that there are bad ways, right? We've been told that
But even in that, you just said getting people to do what you want
exactly.
is leadership.
But that's not where
No,
our discussion about leadership is going.
no.
Almost all of the leadership material I have ever been taught is around either good or healthy or unhealthy ways to get people to do what you believe that they need to do.
Right.
It's all about controlling others.
They would call it motivation.
They would call it motivation. Absolutely.
Yes, which is in and of itself not a bad thing.
No.
Motivating people is great. It's wonderful. Don't That's not what I'm saying. It comes back in my mind about the spirit behind of why you're doing it. Like, why are you motivating people? Are you motivating people out of a manipulation? Ego?
It does come to that, but I want to break it down even a little bit more.
Okay.
At its heart, leadership is doing some of the things that need to be done. One of those things that needs to be done occasionally is convincing other people and persuading other people to do things that need to be done with you, right?
Mhm.
But more often than not, it's just rolling up your sleeves and doing it,
Exactly.
you know?
Yep.
Like I look around church physically every Sunday, and some of the strongest leaders I see are the ones who are going around and emptying the trash cans.
Hmm.
They're not getting thanked for that. They probably should. Like,
Probably.
but you don't see people who are in the congregation just standing there and saying, "Oh, thank you for doing that."
Yep.
Right? It's just a thing that needs to get done, and they're doing it.
Yep.
You know?
They might be unclogging a toilet in the middle of a service when that's what has to get done. They're doing what needs to be done
Yep.
to help environment around them. And we can talk about that a lot more. There's some comments in the chat, though.
Oh, there are. You want to read them?
Sure. We start with Oliver says, leadership is scary. I hear you, Oliver, based on what we've been told as a society. I hope we can change that impression for all of us. Grand Poobah, Anish says, Optimus Prime is leadership. And I think there's probably a whole sermon in there about the methodology of Optimus Prime for you Transformer fans.
Yeah. Yeah, Optimus
He's not a bad
Prime,
leader.
He did not do a whole lot of telling.
Nope. There was a lot of leading by example.
Yeah.
Annie says spiritual leadership is the practice of making yourself functionally unnecessary so that the whole body can rise, rest, and act in freedom. It is shepherding not by driving, but by removing the fences. Yeah, I agree with you.
And to that point, I like the idea of leadership is elevating the voices and the people around us.
Yeah.
Not elevating our own voices.
Absolutely. Like mentorship is a huge portion of leadership, right? It's
absolutely.
helping other people rise up alongside of you. Mr. Lincoln says the ability to motivate, nurture, and bring the best out of your team to accomplish a goal. See, there's a good motivation, good reason for motivation, right? Because you're bringing the best out of everything. As we were talking about this, I started really rethinking leadership as something horizontal, not vertical, right? Because that's that hierarchy that we say is so power dynamic driven in our society, but that's really not what anybody here has described. It's wider, not taller.
Okay, so let's talk about good and bad leaders. And this is where we want stories. I don't want names. I don't want anybody coming back later and being like, how dare you slander me, right? But let's talk names. And Trisha, you had the funniest story of, and this was really more bad leadership training than anything.
Yeah, it was just absurd in my opinion. All right, so I was at work. This was many, many years ago. It's like over a decade ago. And we were on this massive project that had to happen. We had to do a major migration. There's like 300 of us involved. They called us all together for one of those, 3-hour pump everybody up. This is what we're all doing. Get us all on the same page. And they had this story that I to this day I'm going to try. It's not going to make sense because it didn't make sense to me at the time. But they talked about cowbells and how farmers would put bells on the necks of the lead cows so that the other cows would know how to follow them. And then they proceeded to hand out little bells to all of us to show that we were leaders.
And this was at work.
This was at work.
So a professional training.
This was professional training. This made it through I don't know how many people at multiple levels of leadership to agree to buy 500 little bells to hand out to everybody so they could tell us all that we were cows leading each other around. Even at the time, I could not. I was like, I walked away from the room like, does not everybody see how horrendous this analogy is? But I understand wanting us all to be leaders, but is anybody a leader when that happens? First of all, that's one conversation we can have. And secondly, don't tell us we're all cows at work. That's just anyway. So
I've gone on a lot of those rants myself. For a while, I was an agile coach at work, and one of the things that I routinely got in the discussion of is even the concept of human resources. Like, we are these inanimate, usable things like coal that you just toss in the fire, burn, and then discard,
There you go.
And so, yeah, definitely calling everyone cows or coal or whatever is not good leadership.
I don't think so either. Anyway, so I appreciate Annie. Yes, I don't like being referred to as livestock in any capacity. And I love livestock. I love animals, but that just did not go over well with me.
Yeah, and I think so. Oliver says, bad leader. I was told that I either had to only attend the women's groups or I didn't go to celebrate recovery anymore. After I'd been going consistently for almost a year, she told me that God is turning his back on me because of being trans, and I left and haven't gone back since.
Good for you.
So first off, good for you. but also that's a really good example of bad leadership because of the control factor. You know?
Absolutely. Incredibly controlling and manipulating and not lifting people up, not encouraging anyone. Like it failed on every level, Oliver.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry. I'm very sorry that happened to you. And I hope you have found something to replace that organization in your life.
I suspect in some small part it's hope.
I hope so.
But
I hope we can, but that doesn't make it easier to
it doesn't.
experience.
But you know what? We do see a lot of people both coming into Discord and even coming into Hope Physical who have similar stories of leaders who have tried to control and manipulate and harm. Even some with purportedly good intentions will still try to control people for their own good.
They do. And let's be honest, we all are human and we've all made mistakes, and I'm sure somebody could tell a story about every one of us that
Oh,
is,
100%.
So this isn't to say that we don't make mistakes and that leaders can't make mistakes and then learn and do better in the future. It's not to say that in any way. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with talking about how we can all do better.
And you know what a good way to think about good leadership and how we can do better is?
How's that?
By thinking about how did okay, this is going to be way too churchy, I'm sorry, but
how did
Jesus lead?
I knew that was coming. No, first of all, I think it's absolutely right, because there's great examples. I loved it when we were looking at scripture of like, let's talk about Jesus was actually only in the spotlight for maybe 3 years of his life.
Yeah.
At least the scriptures that we have no idea what really happened, but the bulk of his ministry, we are told, only lasted about 3 years.
Yep.
And look at what happened there. But what was he doing during those 3 years?
Well, so first off, he wasn't conventionally successful.
No.
He was a unemployed, homeless former tradesman who grew up, at least in part, as an immigrant who was being hunted by a tyrannical government and ended up being executed by said tyrannical government on behalf of a corrupt religious class.
Absolutely. And in the middle of that, he did show amazing forms of leadership in that horizontal method we just talked about. So,
very much
what
so.
did he do? First of all, he didn't seek out the spotlight. People chased him down and said, "Teach me," right? So that's usually the stories we get of like, yep, he went up on the mountain. Yes, he taught people, but it's not because he rented out a stadium and said, "I'll come pay $50 and listen to me talk at you," or, give an offering of whatever. People chased him down, wanted to be taught. After that, what did he usually do?
He ran off.
He went and got a Sabbath. He went and took a Sabbath.
He did.
Right? But then also, he brought people along with him. He had people he mentored. He brought people up close. He taught them what to do. He even told them, "You feed them." He mentored them. He sent them out so they could come back and then ask questions. So he was constantly trying to distribute power horizontally to those that were around him by example. He didn't leave them out there on their own. He showed them what to do, but he never said, this is your hierarchical structure here.
Yeah.
And he said, you all can do this. Let me show you how. And then you go out and you show people how, and you show people how.
And part of that how was he actively rejected monetary gains at every chance he got. He literally told the apostles, when you go out to the towns, don't accept payment. Don't accept money. Don't take any money with you. Right. He told a rich guy that it was in the easier for a rich person or a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich person to get into heaven. But he told the rich person, go sell all your stuff and give it to the poor. And the crazy part of that story was not crazy, kind of expected. The rich person just went off and mourned.
We don't know what he did after he mourned. Though.
True.
We really don't.
We don't. But Jesus rejected material wealth. He rejected material possessions. He was not conventionally successful in virtually any way except probably one. And that was that 15,000 people regularly went out and tried to listen to what he had to say. Right?
But the result of his style of leadership actively threatened hierarchical leadership,
Oh, absolutely.
and they were threatened by it. And I think that's something we need to think about today. And you'll see that in our society if you look closely, right?
hmm
Grassroots efforts, things like that, are threatening to those that are in power.
And what happens? So actually, that's a really good point. What happens when those grassroots efforts gain steam?
Hmm.
Well, the rich and the powerful come in and try to take it over, fund it, co-opt it to their own
Or buy
means,
it off.
or buy it off, right? And if you look back on what happened with Jesus, the same type of thing. People tried the same type of thing different times.
Hmm.
They wanted him to be the political leader.
Yep.
They wanted him to be the face of a resistance of an overthrow of the government. And he said, "No, I'm
Yeah.
creating a different kind of kingdom, one that you guys haven't seen before."
Exactly. And I think we're still trying to create that kind of kingdom here on earth, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
And it's a great model to figure out, like, what does that look like in 2026, in the 21st century? How do we, we still struggle with the same problems. The same things are still happening. How can we better lead, become leaders? And Christ modeled it for us. Let's not take that Sabbath out of that. Let's figure out how to find that balance, right? He was finding a balance between power and authority. And he was also incorporating into that rest
Yeah.
and time by himself, time in prayer, time to process everything that was happening really quickly.
Yeah. And just a little throwback to something Annie said earlier in the chat. What did he use his power for when he did have power? He used it to restore community, restore connection between the marginalized, the outcast.
Break the Sabbath.
He broke the Sabbath
The
to
legalist,
heal people,
yes, to
right?
heal people.
Yeah, break the Sabbath from the legalist, control-based faith perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess that kind of leads me to ask the question to all of you: when we think about leadership, and we think about trying to take Jesus' example, part of our prayer statement is we're learning to live Christ-centered lives. So in this spiritual practice, how do we use Jesus' example to lead more Christ-centered lives through our own leadership? Whether that's a place of power and authority, or whether that's just picking up the trash when nobody else will do it.
Yeah.
What kind of thoughts or ideas do you guys have on how we all become more Christ-like leaders?
Specifically in a digital community, possibly too.
Yes.
Like, what we didn't really talk about that. Like, what does that mean in a digital space? I mean, I think it's kind of fun in a digital space to re-envision this, because you don't have a lot of examples to go by.
Yeah.
And there isn't right now a big hierarchical model here either.
Well, if we think about Jesus, if we think about what Jesus did and how he led, and how he used his time and energy to restore people to community, to heal people,
Right.
and heal people meaning not like fix them, right?
No, he was not about fixing.
Right. Then in a digital sort of capacity, when hurt people come into our community, how are we using our energy and our time? Are we engaging with them? Are we welcoming them? Are we helping them heal? Right? Or are we saying, "Oh, this is just too weird. I need to back off." You know?
Right. Jesus went and found those on the margins, right?
He did.
Where are the margins of your life? Where are the margins of my life that I bump up against people that are on the margins, right? That are not in the center of where I'm at? And does that encourage me to draw the circle wider, or does that encourage me to curl up inward? And as I'm saying that, the times I curl up inward are because I don't have anything left to give.
Yeah.
Because I didn't take a Sabbath.
Because you didn't take a Sabbath.
Because I didn't rest, and I no longer have anything left for anybody else.
You and I are really bad at that.
We are.
We
And that
run ourselves
you make
ragged.
horrible leaders. Horrible leaders. If you do not have anything left to give, you can't lead.
Yep.
Because leading, we just said, it's about building that community out and
Yeah.
building other people up.
Now, a little bit of an elephant in the room. It came up in the chat. You did not hear us say the words servant leader. And that was intentional because that has been so used, abused, and just...
It's not a wrong concept.
No,
but
it's
oh
not.
my gosh.
But ever since it became popularized in kind of the leadership, I read a book and got an MBA sort of circles.
I mean,
It is awful.
It was in the church for a good 20 years before the business world picked it up.
Yep.
And I was a little done with it in the church, to be honest, by that point in time, too. It had lost a lot of meaning. And then corporate America took it a whole nother way. Concept is good.
Concept is good. Jesus was a servant leader.
Yep.
And Jesus said on several different occasions, the last will be first, the first will be last. His ministry was built on reversing and upending the leadership pyramid, the traditional hierarchical things of the day, right?
And if you're too good to do the thing that nobody else wants to do, you think it's someone else's job to do, then you're probably not really leading in that way.
Actually, so that reminds me of things something I heard when I was a child about leaders, and I've heard Jenny say it similarly here at Hope.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, what I was taught is the first measure of a good leader is somebody who's willing to go and clean the bathrooms on a day when nobody's there.
So here's the deal. I was in that church as an adult when you were hearing those things, and I don't disagree with this. The first time you volunteered to help with like a big conference they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had these conferences with people coming in from around the country. And, oh, yeah, I want to give my time. I want to volunteer. The first thing you were always asked to do, come and clean the bathrooms.
Yep.
For an entire weekend or 5 days, your job is to clean the bathrooms. And if you weren't willing to do that, they weren't going to give you opportunities anywhere else. And I was fine about that. I was fine. I spent an entire conference cleaning bathrooms, and they sparkled. I remember getting upset when someone didn't clean them as well as I did.
Right.
That's a whole nother story. But, you get into that. And if you weren't willing to do whatever, you were not mature enough in their minds to
and they weren't
involved.
wrong. Because
wrong.
I know those leaders,
Yep.
and they were even at the pinnacle of their height of leadership, they were in there cleaning bathrooms.
They would not hesitate to do it.
They would not hesitate. And I've heard similar comments from Jenny here.
Mm-hmm.
Her example is the first thing that I look for in a leader is the people who are taking out the trash or who are doing the dishes. Yeah. And so I think it's a pretty common idea of, if you believe you're a leader, you aren't going after the things that are fancy, right?
And it might be in digital. That might mean an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. Like it's stretching yourself to put yourself in someone else's shoes when you're really not quite sure where they're coming from, but spending time to sit with it and listen and be there for someone that is going through something that is outside of your experience or comfort zone.
It might be expanding your own spiritual practices and reading through the prayer requests and praying for the people who are putting stuff in there.
Absolutely.
That's one of the big needs that we have in our community is for prayer.
Yep. Or checking in with each other if you haven't seen someone in a while. If you've developed a relationship or stretching yourself to develop a deeper relationship with someone in the digital community here. And then once you have that relationship, checking in on each other.
Yeah.
And getting to know each other more versus just, browsing through and responding here or there.
It is easy to disappear in a digital community.
It really is.
And so it gives all of us a responsibility, not just those of us who might be on screen, but all of us the responsibility to keep reaching out, keep people engaged, and keep making sure that people don't disappear unless they want to, right?
Right. We're not going to chase anyone down.
No.
But yeah, you never know who isn't saying what they need until you ask.
All right. So we have talked a lot about leadership, about Sabbath. Tricia, I know we've kind of alluded to the relationship between leadership and Sabbath. We've talked about it. Do you have any kind of final thoughts on the dichotomy of leadership and Sabbath?
Final thoughts? I think they are the twin because
Yeah.
they facilitate one another, right? They both strive for balance.
Yeah.
One strives for balance to bring the individual into balance. The other strives to bring a community into balance. Leaders bring communities into balance by mentoring and lifting up and distributing responsibility and need.
Yeah.
And Sabbath is about balancing the individual in the midst of that community, right? Because we just said it's not all about you. It's not all, yes, you may need to get away and rest. But for some people, that rest is connecting
It
with
is.
another human being.
Yeah, I find it tremendously restful just sitting with you and just talking about random
Right.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes connection can be restful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to talk about this is the last of the spiritual practices that we're talking about.
Yeah, we went through all 8.
We went through all 8. So could we maybe bring up the spiritual practices? We call it the Higgs boson, or
There's a whole bunch of different names for it, but
yeah,
this is we got to this image though because out there in the churchy world, there's all these discipleship practices, and you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I hope Jenny recognized that's just not how we function as a church.
no,
There's
or
not
people, like that's not how
really,
humanity
no,
functions.
That's really not. People need different things at different times, and you may lean into one area and then you lean into something else. And it depends on where you are at in your life at that point in time, what you need.
Yep.
Therefore, all these things are interwoven.
They're interwoven, but I think I know I can be a little bit type A personality sometimes. I think we have some people who are the same on chat right now, and probably who will listen to us in the future, who see this and say, all right, the goal is all 8 at the same time. And that is not, this isn't a checklist. This
Nope.
is not a, we need to be generous, we need to worship, we need to invite, we need to do leadership, we need to do service, community, care, and Sabbath all at the same time.
As a community, we need to do all at the same time.
As
Not
a community.
as individuals. You need to figure out what you need, what your heart needs, what your soul needs at this moment. And that's how we hear Jenny talk about it. What is your heart, your soul needs right now? Look
Right.
at that and like, what are you drawn to, or what gives you a little bit of pain when you read it? And maybe spend some time there. Spend some time leaning into that thing.
And sometimes that's leadership.
Sometimes.
Other times it's stepping back and maybe taking care of yourself, or sometimes we have had people come through our lives who they've been called to caretake for other people, for loved ones, and had to step back from leadership and step back from some of those other
This style of leadership.
that style of leadership.
That can
Right.
be leadership as well, right?
But and it's not like you have to only do one thing at a time, but odds are at any point in time, even right now, God is maybe drawing you, or your soul is being drawn to a handful of those, and maybe not all of them, So as we grow, and we're going to keep growing, we've had more people coming through and talking in Discord. We've had more people joining the podcast. We're going to need people to start thinking about, how am I called to Hope Digital right now? Am I called to leadership? Am I called to Sabbath? Does my soul feel like I need to be participating in worship with Hope Digital in whatever capacity that looks like? Inviting people.
Being
right?
more generous with my time or my resources.
Absolutely.
Where are you being called right now? Where are you being provoked internally to lean into it?
Yep. And so the kind of the ask that I would ask of all of you listening is to really spend some time in prayer here over the next coming week and month, to really consider, what capacity is God asking me, or does my soul need to be in?
Yeah.
And I say both of those because in some kind of church worldviews or spiritual connections with God, we consider it God asking something of us. In others, it's just really more of a my soul knows what it needs.
You just said spend some time in prayer. Can I simplify that for some folks?
Yeah.
Because I think some people hear that and like, I don't know how to do that. This is what I would say. It doesn't have to be complicated. I would say, just say to God, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to be focused on. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Help me see it. Help me make it obvious to me. And just leave it at that. As long as you say something like that that's sincere and authentic to you, it's just that simple. And then just be open to what comes, and expect some guidance. And that's going to look different for every person. Just don't overcomplicate it, folks.
Yep. I know for me, it usually comes up in some sort of crazy situation where I'm like, oh, okay.
You know when you know.
You know when you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, before we're going to end here pretty quickly on our affirmations, but we want to talk about where we're going a little bit.
Real quick. Where are we going?
So our next podcast here is going to be the second Thursday of September. I believe that's September.
It's an early one.
10th?
Something like that. Sounds about right.
I'm just checking
10th. It's the
here.
10th.
Yeah, it's September 10th at 7 p.m. Central. We are going to be shifting into not exactly sure, maybe 2 or 3 months of talking about how to create an emotionally healthy corner of the internet.
Yeah.
So you guys have heard me start to say that a lot, of how we are creating an emotionally healthy corner of the internet.
Yep.
It's nice, it's crisp. We want to make sure that you guys kind of internalize that. But that means that we got to learn how to be emotionally healthy ourselves and how to create an emotionally healthy environment for everybody else.
Yep. We got to practice it a little bit.
Yep.
So that's where we're headed, and we can explore this together.
We are, because it's not something, especially in a digital space, it is not something that comes naturally.
No, I think it's something everybody knows is needed, but how many people focus in on actually making it happen? And that's what we're going to figure out how to do. Because I don't know that we know how to do it.
I think we're learning as we go,
That's
right?
Absolutely right.
So we're going to share some thoughts on kind of what is emotional health, what is emotional safety. We're gonna have some of those conversations. So please plan on coming next month. Invite your friends, especially because this is one that I feel like will speak to where a lot of people are. So invite your friends, invite people who you think would benefit from this, and let's learn how to be emotionally healthy together.
Absolutely. And as we leave you today, let's go ahead and share our affirmations. You are unconditionally loved.
You are intrinsically worthy.
God is with you now and forever.
Have a good night, and we will see you all next month.